The first time I saw Simon Madden, he was sitting uncomfortably at his desk at St Bernard's College, Essendon, a shy, maybe even gawky Year 11 student. I watched him become the preeminent ruckman forward in all my years of watching football. Welcome, Simon.
Hello.
You remember that encounter, St Bernard's? You were 198 centimetres, all arms and legs.
Very much so, and I don't think much has changed these days. A little bit shorter. You were the man who talked me into getting the pair of shorts and the socks. I couldn't find boots, and stuck me in the school uniform, this up here, and then the footy there, and put me on the back page of the Age.
Of the Age, that's right. Yeah, good memory.
Oh, gee,
how clever was that? It looked funny, didn't it? Like footy boots and footy socks.
You didn't cop the flack from the other schoolboys. I'm the one who copped the flack.
So you landed Essendon at 16, and they instantly and predictably called you Mantis. Yeah,
well, I was, as you said, I was arms and legs. I was two yards of pump water as they say in the old saying, and loved my footy. It was really strange because our dad had died when I was 13, and so you go from there to 16 playing league football. So your life changes. Very strangely, but in a very good way. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I think Tim Watson was 15, you were 16, but these days we couldn't comprehend that kids would play league football at such a tender age.
Well, if you think about it, I played football for St Bernard's on Wednesday and then played football for Essendon on Saturday. It just wouldn't be done.
Now, let's not leave that there. You played football for Essendon on the Saturday against St Kilda at Moorabbin on Kevin Cowboy Neal.
I was on the bench the first game, and the pattern of the game had been set, as they say. They'd kick the goal, we didn't, Anyway, late in the third quarter, the message come down, I'm on the bench, and they say, you're on. See, the old dressing gown comes off, and as it's coming off, the full message comes through, and they say, you're on at full forward on Cowboy Neal. And you almost go, I'll just put this back on.
So it would have been scary, though, wouldn't it?
Well, he's just such a big bloke, and, he's well-known, and he's big, and he's tough and rough, and I'm this skinny kid, and they say, just go down the forward line and see what you do.
Yeah.
So I did very well that last 7 or 10 minutes of the third quarter. I kept him kickless. It was very easy.
Were you nervous?
Oh, yeah, but of course you're nervous, but you want to play league footy. I mean, when Tuddy came to talk...
Des Tudden was the coach.
Des Tudden was the coach, and he'd come late the year before to talk my older brother Paul into playing again. He was a very good player, but broke a nose and a cheekbone in an under-19 grand final, had a rock and roll band, was sort of very keen to do that, and so Tuddy was trying to talk him into it, and he went and and Tuddy turned around to me when I was about 15 and 10 months and said, would you like to come and train at Essendon? Now, what does a 15-year-old kid say about that? Of course you do. You say, you want to be part of it.
Game number 4 for you, you're playing against North Melbourne. You kicked 6.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? Look, I had a wonderful apprenticeship because Graham Moss was in the ruck, so he wins 3 best and fairest and a Brownlow, and then goes home. So the next year I'm 19 and I get a chance. So early on I was basically the forward pocket, the extra tall forward. So it all went right that game.
Carlton and Essendon at Waverley, 1975, round 4, 77,000 people in. And you kicked another 6.
Yeah, it's good. It was great. It's a great experience. You're still a school kid. I was 17 back then HSC, and just scraped through that on the skin of my teeth because you put a lot of time into football. But it was just a great experience, and you learn. I think you learn. You get the experience, and Sheeds has done this for the teams all over the time. He said, let's get a chance to play in front of a big crowd, get used to what finals is like. So him at 17, having a successful game in front of a big crowd, it's a great experience, and motivates you to do more.
The most staggering thing about your entire career to me is that your goal total of 575 is still the second best in the history of the Essendon Football Club.
Yeah,
better than Coleman.
Well, he didn't play many goals.
No, he didn't. But I mean, he's the full forward in the team.
Yeah.
That's a lot of goals, isn't it?
Well, look, it is, but it was one of those things that I had a number of games in the forward line for starters, so you get to learn in the forward line. And I've said to young footballers, if you just play in the ruck, especially in modern footy, what'll happen is you play in the ruck and then they'll stick you on the bench. If you can play forward, 2 things will happen. They'll put you in the ruck, go forward. You'll get more game time, and they'll pay you more money because you're doing more for the side. So you develop that, and very easy. Do you sit on the bench and not be involved in the game, or do you develop something else that keeps you on the ground, which you're involved in the game? And that's
but you can't plan that. I mean, you were just good at it. You were a good mark, and you could kick.
I'll let other people be the judge of that, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed jumping on blokes' heads every now and then and taking a mark and kicking a goal, that type of thing.
Your status in the game is undisputed, and I mean, most recently, I know John Newman has always been saying you're the best in the modern era, and John Nichols told me recently that he agreed with that.
And that's very nice to hear.
Well, you can't get any higher accolades.
No, well, that's pretty. I mean, that's a bit humbling that when those two start talking like that.
The technique, was that natural, or did you?
Look, the concept was that and there was no circle, so you could run from a fair way back. So what you did is you lined up in a direct line against him. You ran as hard as you could. You jumped and you hoped. That's what it was.
This is when you were a kid.
This is what you did. And then along the way, Sam Newman came to Essendon as ruck coach, and all of a sudden he said, "Look, if you come in from an angle, and you jump up the opposite leg and you keep your hand up, protect yourself, push the bloke off the line of the ball and hit with the opposite hand, you'll have more chance of it being a 50-50, rather it'll go 60-40 or 70-30. I started doing this, and I because of my high jump, I became a right-legged jumper, the left-handed hitter.
So left hand's your natural
hand? Yeah. And so normally ruckman, left hand goes up, left shoulder, left knee, so you're all in one line. So you come the other way and you're balanced, and you go across the line a little bit and push the bloke off the line of the ball, then you've got more say in what you do. So he does that to me. I start doing this. I go, oh my God, hang on. I actually can have a control of the game now. I'm not just hoping. I actually know what I'm doing.
So your launch leg was your right knee.
Right knee came up, and that's where the balance comes from. And then you start to learn. I played against some very impressive ruckmen, as a kid. So you're just learning something from everybody.
Simon, ruckmen seem to be out of favour in the modern game. Is that because there aren't any good ones, or because the game has changed in the way it's played?
Oh, look, I think the game's changed a little bit, but I don't think that changes anything. I think one of the great things about our game is that you can be, if you're really good enough, you're 5'2" and run around, or you can be 7 foot.
I'm talking about your area of expertise. Why?
Well, I don't like the way the centre circle's been organised.
Good.
You never used to run at each other, right? You used to actually... There's always the angles, and that's what I learned from the older... Always angles. And what happened when we put the line in, everybody just started to go straight. And then because they're running each other and people are doing posterior cruciates, they said, let's put a circle in and then stop them running hard at each other. And I said, no, what you do is you put a circle in, take the line out and get them to start outside the circle.
Okay, so what's the purpose of the circle then?
If you have no circle and no line, you stand in the middle and wrestle, as Moore and Dempsey did.
Yeah, but wouldn't that problem... Now, you were playing that. Would that problem not have been solved? I think Billy Della might have been the umpire. Had he paid free kicks against the bloke who instigated the wrestle?
Yeah, that's right. No, very good. But sometimes you don't know which one's wrestling first. It's very hard. I can remember one time when Justin was playing against another ruckman, I'm just trying to think who it was, and they were wrestling and the umpire blew the whistle and they both ran backwards to see who had the free kick. And I remember until the umpire said which one it is, I didn't know who had the free kick.
I think that the circle's emasculated ruckman. That's my view. No, never having rucked in my life, but...
Yeah, no, but look, it's really interesting.
They're not gladiators anymore.
No, and one of the things is now that we were told, keep your eye on the ball. Now the blokes play chess.
Yeah.
Will I go, will I won't go? And you watch how they sort of go, hang on, and they're watching each other before the ball comes.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people, we've discussed this with people, and they go, well, they're allowed to do that as long as when the ball's been contested, your eyes go back to the ball. I think that's fair enough, but I don't think it's as interesting as a product for the spectator to watch the way it goes now.
You mentioned Justin, as in Justin Madden, your brother. How difficult was it to play? He was at Essendon originally and then he went to Carlton. Was it difficult for you to play in such a combative, physical contest?
No. It was almost like, wrestling in the backyard. I'm going to beat you. And we probably kept it fairly fair. It wasn't, I'm going to try and get a short one in. But, like wrestling in the backyard with the older brother too, or in the lounge room wrecking mum's couch, we'd... I'm going to try and beat you the best I can. It was a really good bit of competition.
In a pure sense.
In a pure sense.
Alan Jeans once told me that had S. Madden worn brown and gold and not red and black, Hawthorn would have won every premiership in the 80s. Have you heard that?
No, that's a
massive call, isn't it?
That's a big call. That's a big call.
Now, admittedly, they weren't rich in ruck talent.
No, I jokingly say I made Chris Langford because he played against me in the ruck one time. I got Norm Smith medal.
Yeah, they sent him to
full-back and he had a 300-game career.
So you played in the Hawthorn Grand Finals. You played against Ian Payton.
Langers.
Langers.
Yeah.
Greg Deere.
And really, both dears were really good ruckmen in their own right. Different. One was a bustler, one was a leaper. But look, like you ask any footballer, the challenge is how it doesn't matter who your opponent is. The challenge is to beat them. So whoever they are, you're going to beat them. And look, an interesting one you talk about. I find it fascinating because people have said to me, "Oh, you're a very good state game player," right? Which is nice to hear. But I walk in. Think about this. I walk out in the centre of a state game, and I've got Greg Williams, Brownlow medalist. I've got Jared Healy, Brownlow medalist. I've got Flea Waitman, probably Richmond's best rover. And I walk out there and go, well, I've got no excuses. I better get the ball to these blokes. So playing with good players and against good players lifts what you're trying to do.
Leon Baker sat in your chair a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, he's very good, Leon. He's a good man.
Tell me about the occasion that you berated him because you declared that you would hit it to 9 o'clock and he was on daylight saving at 7:30.
That was a beautiful line. I'm surprised he only said once. Look, I always said to the footballers I played with, I say the ball's going to be there. If I hit it there and you're not there, well, I have the opportunity to tell you off. If I say I'm going to hit it there, you're there and I don't hit it there, well, you have the opportunity to tell me. And that's just what it was. 2
Brownlow placings. Does it worry you? Is it something in your mind that you would have loved to have done and perhaps should have?
Oh, look, you could. I don't know if I should have, but it's great to be in the voting. It's great to be up there. But look, people say to me, I've got a Norm Smith medal. I love it. It's very good, but I'd take me 2 premiership medals ahead of anything else. Full stop, because that's was what you're aiming for. And Gary Foles and I both started the same year. It took us 10 years to get to grand final. We get beaten by a record score. And some people never get another chance. And we got 2 more chances and got our premiership. So, good as gold.
Simon, you started in a blaze of glory and your mid-80s were outstanding by any definition. Early 80s, you were dropped by Kevin Sheedy.
Yes.
Dropped to the seconds.
Yes.
And then dropped by Bernie Sheehy to the bench for the seconds game.
Look, it's funny because I actually...
Now, Bernie Sheehy was Kevin's assistant.
Yeah.
And Kevin rated Bernie's acumen. But he'd never played AFL football, and here he is dealing with you and saying, listen, champ, you're late to the footy, start on the bench.
Look, that was the rule. I hadn't played in the seconds for so long, I didn't even know what time they started, It was one of those ones. So I was actually for 2 weeks. So the first week, I'm late, but it's Windy Hill. So I'm late, but he's around here somewhere because Windy Hill's big enough. The next game was at Fitzroy at Junction Oval. There was one room. So I'm late and I walk in and everybody says, he's late. Now, the rule was if you're late, you're on the bench, so that was a rule. So I have no,
But was that a cavalier attitude of yours, or was it traffic, or what?
I blame Mary, my wife. She was late.
She didn't pack your bag soon enough. But were you a bit miffed that you were down there and you thought they can wait for me?
Oh, no, I never thought that. I was annoyed that I was late. Of course, you'd be annoyed for being on the bench, but I remember going out the door and saying to Bernie, just get me on as soon as you can, will you?
So you did. So there was no blue with him?
Oh, no.
He was right to do that?
Well... It's a hard call, but it's the right call.
His view was, as good as you were...
If I'm late, it's not about me, it's about the team. So if I'm late, and the rule is you're on the bench, then I'm on the bench. I accepted that.
How did you feel, though? This
was probably
11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I said, who plays footy at this time? Well, you're really annoyed, but you can't blame anybody else except yourself. I mean, that's the whole... I get frustrated with people who blame everybody else for their shortcomings, everybody else about what they do. You're the one who controls your destiny, and that's as simple as it is.
I still can't get my head around the fact that the Madden that I've seen play his entire career could end up deservedly dropped to the 2s.
Well, that's football.
But was it your application or was...
No, look, basically, Sheeds and I weren't getting along at that stage, and that is nothing. I'd been captain and was a very good captain.
You weren't a very good captain?
No, I was learning captain. I was 21 when they made me captain. I was 22. Made a few mistakes about going, like I went out one Friday night, shouldn't have gone out and got in trouble. The captain shouldn't be doing that.
Out to where?
Oh, just a function with... Can I say Paul Vanderhart took me out? Is that all right?
That'll do. Now I know what you're doing. Durries, stubbies.
So, and it happened. So I can remember being really down about that. But I think one of the, a highlight for me in my career is that I hit bottom. And I said, and I can remember at the end of that season going, well, people have a different opinion of my ability than what I do. So
explain.
well, I'm sitting on the bench, umming and ahhing, former captain now, sack captain.
So you when you went to the seconds, you'd been captain?
I'd been captain previous to that. Yeah. And so this is afterwards. So, it can all go wrong, and talk to lots of players about this. But for me, it was, okay, other people at the club, and, the people start to question, are you good enough and all that. And I said, well, other people question my ability as a player. And I have a different view of that. So what am I going to do about it? Not what they're going to do about it. Don't blame them. What am I going to do about it? And I remember, it's a bit cheeky as a young fellow. I remember I'm going to win. I remember saying I'm going to win the best and fairest next year. Now I'd already done that twice, so it's not as if I hadn't done it. Now that's a big call as a young bloke.
Which year are we talking about now?
That would have ended up being 83. Because 82 was the bad year, and then 83. And I won the best and fairest in 83, and I won the best and fairest in 84. And for me, that's not a pat on my back. That's a realisation that, yes, I could be in control of my destiny, and I wanted to be. And I did so. I did it. In other words, that's the goal, win the best. So what does it mean, all the things you have to do to get there? So the training improved, the attitude improved, the preparation improved, da-da-da-da-da.
So you never lost faith in your own ability?
No. You can't, in this game you can't. I mean, because you're the bloke who, you're the bloke who runs this. The tool of your trade is this. So if you lose confidence in the bloke running this, you might as well pack your bags and leave.
Simon, Kevin Sheedy takes the captaincy off you. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here. In favour of Neil Danaher. Right. Neil was about 21 or something, was he?
21, 22, yeah.
Were you offended by that?
And I was disappointed, but I wasn't offended. I was, I said, well, you always ask why, and I thought, look, now a captain would get a whole lot of instruction, training, where they said back then you're the captain, good luck. And so so I didn't do, looking back, I didn't do a good job. I wasn't mature enough, I think, for captain. Later on, when I was about 26, 27, and we're doing really well, I think Sheed said to me at one stage, well, if you're captain now, we wouldn't take it off you. And I remember saying to myself, yeah, you're probably right now. It's a different, whole different...
So when he did take it off you, how did he explain it?
Well, that's a very good question. He just talked, it's very good. He sat down, one-on-one, have you, what about this, what about this? We don't think you're quite doing the job right, and you go, all right, well, at least... I've always said, you sit down and talk to me. I can disagree with your viewpoint, but if you give me your viewpoint, that's all you can ask of a coach, can't you?
So Neil never actually was able to exercise the captaincy because of his knee injury?
Mate, just three knee injuries. And some of them, you look back and you go, how did he do that there? Out at Waverley when well, at one night at training, he just moved and the knee went. A very, very good player.
I was going to ask you about it. He played 66 games, I think, before he got hurt the first time. Was never, even though he came back, played another 15, was never the same. How good was he before he was hurt?
Neil could play both ends of the ground. He could take a really good mark, a long kick. You could almost play him. You play him centre forward and you play him rover almost. He just had that ability, and he had the ability. He had the ability to change games, and he'd done that.
After the break, I want to find out just how close you got to going to Sydney. Mid-80s, a doctor from Sydney.
Yes, the good doctor.
A chap called Jeff Edelston.
Yeah, the good doctor.
Makes overtures to you, and he's hell-bent on getting you to play with the Swans.
I would have been the highest-paid player at that time. It was, and I openly say this. He offered me $100,000 upfront cash. And $450,000 over 3 years. So it would have been $500,000 back then.
So we're talking 30 years ago.
30 years ago. Would have been the highest.
And the deal was $100,000 in cash to sign, and $150,000 a year.
A year for 3 years. I said, there's a couple of problems. I said, what? And I said, well, I've got a new family, a new house, and a new job. He said, what do you do for a job? I said, I'm a teacher. He said, I'll get you a job. I'll buy you a school. And I remember saying to myself, this is just... Now, he said he didn't say it, and I don't blame, because he spoke to 30 players. I only spoke to one doctor. I remember what he said.
It's in all the footy books that he did, in fact, sort of say, OK, you're a school teacher, I'll buy you your own school.
And that's when I went, that's just, and he wanted me to sign, Merv Nagel, Glenn Hawker to sign. He wanted us to train on the Monday so he could show Sheed he was trying to get that his 84-85 premiership side had been broken up, so not to worry about it.
So the year we're talking about is 86,
This is end of 85 for the 86 season.
OK. And so he lures you across and he thinks Sheeds will follow.
Well, he said if he gets all of us, And I said, well, no, he wanted us to sign there, and I said, well, no negotiations in football last, like that. And the second offer was, $1 million over 10 years, play for 5 and coach for 5.
Is that right?
Yeah.
For the Swans?
Yeah. And you sort of go.
So you knocked back the original deal?
Well, no, I'm umming and ahhing, and then they said, look, if you're looking for longer term, longer term, why don't we give you 5 and 5? And I think, I thought to myself, who can plan that way ahead?
Yeah.
Give me 5 years coaching. The first year you might sack me. I might be. And I went back to the club and I said to the club, because the club, you had to tell the club then, if you had to, within 24 hours, tell the club that you made an offer. And Barry Capriano's a lovely bloke, a very good operator, rang me on the Sunday morning and, sort of said, hi, Simon, you know what I'm ringing? I said, yeah, and his voice almost broke. He said, the figure's right.
Did he?
And I said,
and Barry's the CEO of Essendon.
Yeah, he was CEO. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, look, we can't match that. And I remember saying, look, just show me you want me.
Yeah.
And they did, and it all worked out well.
So what was the reason that you said no?
I just doubted that they could do what they said they could do. Where I know, and maybe it's been safe, but again, not blindly. We've just played in 2 premierships, and they're talking about possibly the next one. Well, and then all of a sudden, this fairy tale type thing. I'm going to be in school. All this is coming out, and you're sort of going, hang on, this just doesn't.
So it was unreal.
To me, it was unrealistic.
You would have played in a premiership team had you gone.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I know.
Very good.
Well, Gerard Healy said that if they had me in the ruck, they would have won a premiership. It's a lovely thing to say, but that's.
No, I agree with that.
That's anyway. It never happened. Let's move on.
Oh, okay. You were bohemian when you were young, weren't you? You had the shoulder length hair, the beard.
I had the combi van, but at one stage you had hair down to here and a beard down to here. I don't even know how. I couldn't do it now, but that's the way it was. And you brush your hair out of your eyes and jump for the ball, and off you go.
Yet during games you'd have coffee at half time.
Well, that was later on, and it was. It just I don't know. I think it was one cold day. And then, because there's a little bit of caffeine in it, there's one cold day, my hands are freezing and one of the trainers had a coffee. I said, give me a coffee at half time. And actually, I played all right in the second half, I suppose. And so actually, that wasn't bad. It's very relaxing, but you get a little bit, that little caffeine
So
kick.
It became routine?
It just became routine. And that was towards the end, yeah.
As did the ciggies after a game?
Oh, they were early on, mate. I'm very anti-smoking. I said my old man died when I was 13, 2 packets of Viscount, Turf, Craven A, so I'm very anti-smoking now. Back then you had the all the macho advertising, but that was done back there. I remember one stage when they said that nobody's allowed to smoke in the rooms anymore, and the trainers went, oh yeah, you mean everybody else but not us? And they said, no, you're not allowed to smoke in the rooms either. And the trainer's going, hang on, we're working it there. We can't work without a smoke. That was the attitude. Yeah. Imagine someone having a smoke in the rooms now. Yeah. Just the whole way the world's changed.
Now, you played for 19 seasons.
Yes.
Amazing record, 378 games. There's a bloke at Essendon now in his 23rd season. What do you make of Dustin Fletcher?
Oh, look, he's just sensational. And we want to have a 400-game player. It's fantastic. Then we can go with Hawthorn and Richmond, say we've got a 400-game player. So you analyse and say, well, how does somebody last that long? And I remember Tucky was nearly 39 when he played 426 games, and they said to him, no, we want to rest you. And he went, well, hang on, I'm still going well. He hasn't lost his speed. And the game is such now that the game flows up and down the ground where he's very good. I've watched him. He's very good at playing off his man when the ball's up the other end, getting the right angle to run back and beat the ball back to his player. Very smart that way. I think the other thing that he's very laconic, he's very laid back, so the stresses of the game don't get to him. And he loves the game. So if he can keep playing, I think you put those 3 things together, he's got 22 years' experience of football that he can apply into a game. So.
It's not unfair, I don't think, to say to you that you limped across the line, didn't you?
No, I did.
1992.
No, it's not unfair. It's exactly right.
Yeah. So 1992 ends up being your last year.
Yeah.
You played, I think, in round 11 and then didn't play again until you were given a farewell game round 24.
It was lovely.
You believe people that have done what you did and TD deserve to be acknowledged for their contribution?
It was great acknowledgement. It wasn't going to... Look, and some people say you shouldn't have done it. Some people said you shouldn't have. I mean, Sheeds is very good at that. The 4 Danaher's played in a game. I think it's very good for the fabric of your club, for the quality of club. But in the end, you've got to get picked on whether you can play the game or not. And I know there's other competing factors, but I'll be great. I'm always grateful for it, but I didn't really do much. I think I had 1 kick.
Really? Did you? Yeah.
Maybe 2.
You played for the best part of 20 years. What was the most significant change in the period from your arrival to your departure?
I think for me, the professionalism, because when I started, I started in black and white telly. I had 1 year of black and white telly. Tuddy was coaching, and it was Monday, Tuesday, Thursday night after 5, play on Saturday afternoon. And over that time, towards 92 when I finished, it was starting to go, well, we want to train at 3 and we want you to come in. All of a sudden it was getting harder for anybody to have a job, to actually try and fit footy in a job in. And then in the next 3 years, say 95, 96, it probably went really fully professional. You can check on that. Just the way it just kept going up all the time. Another notch, and so you have to think, well, what do I have to do to keep with this game? The game's going like this and training's going like this. All of a sudden, you've got to, we're even talking about again now, training's got to drop off because the game's getting so hard on the body. And that concept of recovery had never been talked about before. Maybe Sunday morning training. So that big I think that one is the one that big step that this game is really, going places.
Simon, the most accomplished ruckman I've seen since your departure is Dean Cox.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can find one now. I'm not sure I can actually say to you now, there is a ruckman in the game who stands with the giants that went before him.
Sandilands is doing all right. He's very good, and I think he's improved. I can remember watching him improve his speed and his flexibility, his manoeuvrability.
He doesn't mark like Madden.
No. Look, maybe the game doesn't lend itself to that because it's that more invasion sport now. But I still think there's. I watch the game and I still think there's opportunities for ruckman to get a mark and a kick, and it's not always just when the old play behind the ball, and it's through the middle when through transition. It's when the ball's in the forward line and you float in. There's still ways you can do it, but I don't know if we coach blokes to do it.
Tell me this, whether I've got this right. I was led to believe that you stood for the board because you are so hostile about the supplements regime, and also the fact that Hurdy was going to return as coach.
No, that's
not true.
No, that's not true. I didn't come with an agenda. What I came with is, and I think I said it before, most people can stand in the outer and point and go, that's terrible, and do nothing about it. Now, I was in a position to say, well, I reckon if I put my name up, I'll get on the board. Funny about that, if you're a premiership player.
Yeah.
And I said, I reckon and nobody has all the information. If you're not right in amongst the club, you don't have all the information. So people make statements, etc., about it. I thought, well, I reckon I've got a pretty good perspective on the game. I've played the game, I've done ruck coaching, not full-time coaching, but I've seen the coaching side. I've been on the Players Association. I've seen the injuries, I've seen the highlights, I've seen the lowlights, and I reckon, people say I've got a level head, some say I've got a flat head, but and so I reckon I could bring a perspective to the board that maybe not everybody has, and so that's why I got on. So there was no hidden agenda. I did that because I thought I could help the Essendon Football Club.
Hey mate, you've been a giant in more ways than one. You really have been. I've always said that you are the best Essendon player I've seen.
Well, thank you very much, but you're biased because you did that first photo.
I did, that's true.